You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's pay-per-view after show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's pay-per-view after show.
Where's pro wrestling on your radar screen as well?
Well, it's funny that since Shayna moved in, it's like our group activity now is that we sit down and watch Raw and all this stuff together. It's like, yeah, it's like our little family time. We all sit down like, okay. And, yeah, then the video game came in and, yeah, and it's funny, I had some wrestling buddies. I had, so now, like, I gave them to Shayna and Jessamine. They sleep with their little wrestling buddies, and yeah, Shayna totally converted our whole house into, like, you know, a super pro wrestling house. And me and Shayna did have an ongoing debate on who was Arn Anderson and who was Ric Flair. But I was like, sorry, I have to be Ric Flair. I gotta be Ric Flair. So eventually we came to the conclusion that I could be Ric Flair and she would be Arn Anderson, as long as I had to be Goku and she could be Vegeta. Which I really didn't want to let Vegeta go, but it made more sense, you know. It made more sense because I think there was this one line she was quoting. It was like, you know, nobody kills Kakarot while I'm around, you know. And she's like, no one can beat you except for me, like, and that's pretty much it makes sense. So yeah, with Jessamine and Marina, they're just like, you know,
Barry Windham and Tully.
Yeah, I think Jessamine's Tully.
Welcome to UFC AFTERBUZZ, the AFTERBUZZ's new TV show as we preview and wrap up every UFC pay-per-view, UFC Fight Night cards, and also upcoming shows of The Ultimate Fighter coming up. I'm your host, Rob Abreu. Alongside me, my co-host, the University of MMA co-owner, matchmaker extraordinaire, Jay Tan.
Hey, guys.
And then awesome producer, also a huge wrestling fan, Raven Travis Berry, joining us.
That would be me. Next to Jay.
So, guys, obviously last night UFC 170 went down. A little anticlimactic ending to the pay-per-view. Let me get your thoughts. Number one, were you surprised that Ronda won? And number two, were you surprised in the way she won via knockout?
No, I wasn't very surprised by many of the results at all. I think probably none of them really were shockers to me. But you know, Ronda by TKO in the first. It's nice to see a change of pace. We've known known that she's been working on her striking, you know, with Glendale Fighting Club and Edmond, and it kind of makes sense. So one thing I was thinking after watching the event, conventionally speaking, when you've got two grapplers, high-level grapplers, most of the time you see this with BJJ guys, but they kind of cancel themselves out, and a lot of times they'll end up in a striking match. So in that respect, everyone knows Ronda's grappling is fine. There's not a lot to, we're talking about tweaks in terms of improvements, high-level grappling. So it makes sense that she's going to be building up on her striking, and you know, judoka versus wrestler, it kind of makes sense that at least for the time that it went, that it was, you know, a striking match.
I thought it was great that she, won with the knee to the kidneys. I sent out a tweet last night saying it reminded me of when Sting, you know, bringing the wrestling knowledge into this show.
That took how long?
Because we are not going to be formal like everyone else. You can see that on other shows. But remind me of when Sting incorporated the Scorpion Death Drop into his finishing repertoire, and everyone was like, wait a second, like, he just won the match, but it wasn't with the Scorpion Death Lock.
And it was with the impact move that you expect from a big guy as opposed to a fast high flyer.
It was like, now everyone's wondering, like, you know, Ronda may have like more than one finisher now. You know, create the video game and she can have two finishers. And just like, wow, you know. So I thought it was great.
So we saw in the highlight, Ronda said she was Ric Flair. Now you're saying she's Sting.
I was trying to think if Flair had 2 finishers, but I guess like the roll up under, the small cradle or something could have been a finisher.
If there's going to be a 4 horsewomen ever at any point, Ronda will always be Flair. Sadly, though, I wanted to point out, I think that certainly Jessamine and Ronda probably don't know who Barry Windham is, but Jessamine is definitely Barry Windham.
Yeah, I mean,
Shayna is Tully, and Marina. Well, no, Marina you can argue Tully as well. But Shayna is Arn. That's what I wanted to say.
Shayna is Arn, definitely.
Yeah.
It was funny because we actually went to interview Ronda a few weeks ago, and that was my first time meeting her, and it was a great pleasure. Then I go to Raw later that night, and there's the rest of the 4 horsewomen. I'm like, wow, I met all 4 of them in one day. But yeah, Jessamine is definitely the Barry Windham of the group. Shayna is definitely Arn. It's almost scary because you can see some pictures, and you almost see Arn Anderson. Like just in her face or so. It's just the way she kind of stands in the eyes. It's like the 4 horsemen, and Marina's definitely Tully. So I think it's a great gimmick. It's everyone who watches UFC now at one point probably watched pro wrestling, and they know pro wrestling is all about gimmicks. And there is actually a gimmick now in the UFC. You had Brock Lesnar there, and just being a former WWE wrestler was his gimmick, let alone besides his promos post-match. You had Anderson Silva, who was just dominant and undefeated. That was a wrestling gimmick also. George St. Pierre, the Canadian superstar, just like Bret Hart, every time they go to Canada, sell
with
out.
The Terry Funk kneeling, asking for the title match.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's like, with GSP and Silva gone and Lesnar gone, you're like, okay, who has a gimmick now? Like, who in UFC? Not that the UFC, actually tries to build their stars to have gimmicks, but this came along and it's so amazing.
It's a nice way of the women themselves finding ways to market themselves, as opposed to the UFC having to design or write any kind of storyline or angle. And quite frankly, I think that it's great on several different levels. One, those are all likable women that people want to like, even if they don't know them. It's a girl at the party that you want to talk to, but you're not sure how to approach her. Two, it's as Ronda is absent for the next couple of months, you have other women now kind of getting the rub off of her, getting that boost as it were, for their upcoming matches later this year.
Right, and the UFC needs other marketable women to push
keep
on the undercards, and this little 4 horsemen angle.
I think also, if I was UFC, it's all about merchandise. So 4 horsemen T-shirts. Why
well, that
not?
might be a copyright issue, maybe, but
I don't know. 4 horsewomen, is it really copyright?
there you go.
You filed on a parody.
Yeah,
might be able to get away with that. Yeah.
So I want to, we're gonna get back to the whole wrestling UFC angle. Raven, you got the CM Punk shirt going. We're definitely gonna talk about that. But let's get back to the fight last night. Controversial ending. Do you think the fight was stopped too early?
I'll say that it could have gone a little bit longer. There's something very specific for a lot of people don't realize that it's hugely different when you watch a show on TV versus live versus being right there, a foot or two from the fighters. It's a different view altogether. And, Herb saw something that qualified, in his mind, qualified as it being a TKO.
Do you think there was something in his mind from the fight earlier where people said he let it go a little bit too long?
I don't know. I'd like to think not, most likely, because he's such a seasoned referee. I think he's far beyond making that kind of or letting that affect himself. But that said, I do think that given the grittiness of McMann, especially as a wrestler, and the stature of the fight itself, you probably could have let it go a little bit longer just to see if she can escape. In the post-fight interview or the post-fight media press conference, she talked about how it came down to her that McMahon just she should have gotten up faster. And it's the referee's discretion in terms of when to stop and when is the fighter's safety at risk. Herb decided that it was at that point. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We're never going to know. But I do think that it's significant too that not wanting to get back to this wrestling analogies, but now you have a little bit of a storyline that that finish may have come a little bit early, and that McMahon wasn't necessarily she wasn't finished. She was by the referee. Maybe she was or wasn't by Ronda's striking. So, you know, there is that once when we get to the summer and later this year.
Right, and I hate blaming the ref, and I give props to Sara McMann. She admitted, and I always side with, hey, if you put yourself in that bad situation, there is a possibility the fight's going to get stopped. And Herb Dean's one of the best, by far, easily the best referee, him and Big John McCarthy, in MMA, but he's had a rough couple of months. The stoppage last night, and then the Henan Barao
fight.
Faber stoppage, so...
That one, I also felt the Barao one was a little bit early. Again, same thing where different perspective when you're the ref or in the seats or on TV. In the Barao Faber fight, Faber's finger was up, or his thumb rather. But you know,
it's different.
Herb is focusing on a bunch of different things there at that point.
It's hard because you're in the spotlight. You're under the lights. You're in the moment. You're trying to do your job, you know, as a ref, knowing that you're probably, you know, number 1 or number 2 in the whole MMA industry. And, you know, as viewers, you know, we're seeing it from about 7 different camera angles. And for Herb, there is no camera angle. It's just his 2 eyes, you know. If someone is verbally tapping, you know, and you have 20,000 people in the arena,
the referee hears it long before anybody else does. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And you hope he hears it. You know, that's the thing. Is like it could be so loud. Yeah. You know, you go to certain cities where UFC is doing their first show, or it's a very hot city, and you know it's so loud you don't know how it affects your hearing or so forth. So, you know, it's just one of those things, and that's the thing, you know, about UFC. It's like it's live. It's not scripted. It's as it happens. It's a real fight. And it's, you know, I saw on the internet how people were coming down hard on Herb last night, but it's no different than, you know, everyone who cries about the referees in the NFL or the NBA or, you know, boxing when boxing was hot. You know, it happens in every sport. So, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel for Herb because that's a job I definitely don't want.
Yeah.
And I think it's just some unfortunate circumstances last couple of times. I'm sure he'll bounce back. And it's been unfortunate. It's happened twice now in the main event, and it's had to been with Herb. So I just was testing you guys just because a lot of MMA fans are so critical when it comes to the referees. And really, it's so much more difficult than a boxing match or, like you said, you know, NFL, you have 3 or 4 other officials. MMA, it's just you, and there's so much.
You can stop and look at those instant replays.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We don't have that yet in MMA.
Exactly, which would be a good thing to have. But then again, where do you start the fight? That's a whole other bag of questions. But let's get back to Ronda Rousey. I mean, she comes into this fight on fire. She just ran right through Sara McMann. What's next? Is it Cyborg? Is it a rematch with possibly Liz Carmouche? Are we going to see Kat Zingano, who's coming off some serious personal issues herself? I'm not sure if I really see a viable contender out there for Ronda.
Well, I suppose it's a good time for her to take some time off, right, and build up some of these other contenders. I think
that's what
it'll be a while before we see Juliana Pena coming off of her recent injury.
And I thought, man, that girl had a ton of potential.
And that's something that they can build up. That would have been, you know, a gift in terms of promoting, you know. But Ronda will be gone for probably through the summer or so. I know she said she talked about maybe having the itch to come back and fight late spring or so. But yeah, you've got Kat Zingano, who everyone agrees is deserving of it, of a title shot. Likewise, I think Alexis Davis as well, who's got a nice little win streak going on. And hopefully they can sign some other 35ers as well that couldn't be booked for 1, maybe 2 matches between now and late summer. But I would expect to see Ronda. I don't think we'll see Ronda before the summertime.
Do you think Cyborg comes to the UFC?
Dana made a very good point about in the post-fight conference. You know, she's got to get down safely to 35. She should fight a couple other times at 35. You know, improve it, because quite frankly, I mean that shit about her saying she's runs the risk of dying. When you put that out there, it's just it can make everybody look bad. If she goes forward and instantly makes 35, you know, I suppose it.
But I think too, at the same time,
she's got to prove herself. Is my point.
I think that was a negotiating ploy for the most part with her and Tito Ortiz, and then you know the UFC has its own specialists and Mike Dolce, Right. That could possibly come in and assist her cut in that way, and then we could have that mega fight. But I still think, like you said, the UFC is going to make her test the waters and try it out and do it one time. And in addition to that, having her on a UFC pay-per-view with an impressive victory at 135 pounds is only going to build the match with Ronda Rousey even more.
I think she definitely needs to at least have 1 or 2 matches in the UFC. It'd be kind of unfair for her to just walk in and get a title shot, and then, you know, anything can happen. You know, what if she walks in and loses those first 2 fights? Then that mega fight is really not a mega fight anymore.
Well, that's the reason why they would book her. I think they would probably book her in a title fight as soon as she did come in. But the idea would be for her to fight at 35 and prove that it won't affect her body, you know, and in Invicta. Or she's also got I believe she's got a contract for Lion Fights, Muay Thai promotion. She fights once or twice there. As soon as she proves in Nevada or California or wherever, Kansas City, that she can make 35, then yeah, I mean, it probably would take only 1 match, quite frankly, if they can come to negotiating terms pretty quickly. And then you've got to wait for Ronda to come back, and I don't doubt that she would want a serious 2-month camp, because say what they will back and forth about each other, Cyborg is somebody to be taken seriously in a cage, absolutely, and you know, Ronda's not going to blow that off. She's going to take it as serious as anything else, just because that's who she is. That's what she does.
Now, being that, you know, I think we should tell the audience out there that, you know, we're going to do more than, you know, just talk about the UFC and the fight itself. So taking the show to the whole different aspect of how other AfterBuzz shows really aren't. You know, we're going to be going cage side, talking to the referees, talking to everyone. You know, we're even going to get, you know, camera operators and producers of events, you know, in here and calling in. So to tie that all in, do you think the UFC should, or do you think they will do a reality type show once this Rousey Cyborg fight is made? You know,
well, there's a future season of the Ultimate Fighter,
or even, you know, even if it's not the Ultimate Fighter, even if it's like, you know, in boxing on HBO they do the 24/7, which is really amazing.
Yeah, Wagner show, 3-episode series or something.
Yeah,
UFC Primetime they had.
I think maybe
that's
like a 3-week episode. Just to...
I had read that they were going to put those on hold for a little while, at least indefinitely. But I think with the right show, the right match comes along, something like Rousey Cyborg. Yeah, I could see that happen.
I think the Rousey Cyborg is one of those, you know, Fader Brock matchups. It's kind of a dream matchup. I'm not sure if we're necessarily ever going to see it, and it might fall under one of those that what if or never was.
There is that, yeah. I mean, it's a match to be made. How do we not the right way to phrase it, but it's everyone's match to lose in terms of promoting. It makes sense for it to happen as long as Cyborg can prove that she can get to 35 and fight safely. Then it just makes all the sense in the world. There's too much money on the table for everybody involved to lose for this match not to happen.
Now, do you put this on a quote-unquote mega card, or do you just have this in a...
I think it deems it, whatever card you put it on, that's the mega card.
Yeah, I think it's a standalone.
But do you try to add another mega match?
Sure, you could do this for a year-end show, or July 4th. I'm trying to think if there's one.
The Super Bowl show that they usually have.
Super Bowl show, maybe a stadium show, you know, towards sometime in the fall. I think Montreal in November is becoming a tradition. I could be wrong about that just offhand, but you know, if that's the case, then yeah, you possibly do that there, and then somebody else that you're building up in another Canadian, you put them as the star, the new GSP, if you will, on that Montreal show. If my memory is serving correct at all, who knows?
Well, definitely it's something I think every MMA fan, we're going to be continuing to monitor the situation, and if we get an opportunity to talk to Ronda, Dana, Cyborg's new management, you know, we'll definitely love to bring that news here to AfterBuzz. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the rest of the 170 card. I'm going to pick out a fight, the Rory McDonald, Damian Maia fight, and I'll let you guys pick out a couple, but I want your thoughts on Rory McDonald. To me, he just seems like he's taken a couple steps back the last couple of years. I kind of was expecting, this was a fight, I believe, coming in that was pretty much set up for him on a tee just to come in and run right through Damian Maia in the first round. Damian Maia, I love Damian Maia, but very one-dimensional. Not a great athlete. So I thought it was really a good matchup for Rory McDonald. And if I had to give him a grade last night, it was probably a C.
Rory.
What are your thoughts on Rory last night?
I thought the match was a lot of fun. I gave Damian the first one, and then Rory the second and third. You didn't see, in my opinion, I'd somewhat agree in that I think he controlled the center. You didn't necessarily see him going in for the kill or being as aggressive as some fans would want him to see, and myself as well. That said, I thought his boxing looked fantastic. He looked in control. I thought he actually looked better than I'd seen him previously. And the other thing is that it's his character, his gimmick, his persona. Really, for whatever reason, I think in the post-fight conference, and this as well, just continues to strike my funny bone. I love it. The guy was talking about apparently a week before the fight he'd cut his hand. He said he stabbed his hand cutting an avocado, and he just said it very quietly and matter-of-factly like this. I'm like, this guy is the original American Psycho. Due respect to Stephan Bonner, but this guy is Patrick Bateman to a T.
That's what I was thinking.
MMA's Patrick Bateman, and you didn't see that kind of serial killer manic thing in the cage, but he did control Damian with the striking and this is takedown defense as well. Forget about it.
And I think obviously Rory is one of the top 5 guys in that division. But maybe he's reached his, to me, in viewing him over the years, maybe he's reached his full potential. But the reason I gave him a C was I felt like he got dominated in that first round. And then I felt Damian gassed towards the end. Absolutely. So I'm not so much sure if the second and third round was really Rory doing well more so than it was Damian fading. So there's an argument there, but
sure. I think if people expected not a decision, at least at least a second round victory for Rory, but.
And Raven, you bring up a good point. The decisions. Last night we had a lot of decisions. The UFC changed their bonus structure. You think that was maybe an attempt to try to get the fights more exciting again, or for encouraging fighters to go for the finish more?
I think so. I think that's what Dana. Dana's a hard ass. And Dana wants his shows to be entertaining. Especially at this point now with UFC running a lot of television shows. There was a period where I think we went 5-6 weeks straight of UFC product on every weekend. So between the Fox specials, the Fox Sports 1 specials, the pay-per-views, and everything on the Fight Pass now, there's a lot of UFC product, and Dana wants every show to be a mega show. He wants every show to be the show of the year, and which is hard. So I think that's one reason why they kind of changed their structure on the payouts at the end of the show.
I disagree completely. I think that either way it doesn't matter. I don't know why exactly they changed the structure in terms of labeling, but that's all it really is just labeling. I think my opinion is that they should have kept the KO and submission bonuses. Just because those are so traditional in MMA. I think they're a fundamental part, and if there's a show that doesn't have a submission or doesn't have a KO, that's not preventing them from giving a bonus to somebody else. We didn't have a KO, so therefore we're not going to give a KO over the night. But this other guy kicked ass, so he gets money. And, $50,000 is a lot of money, no doubt. But off of some of these shows, not all of them, but some of them, you can afford, if you really feel that way, you can afford to give guys beyond that. I mean, beyond whatever the categories are that are established. I think it's, if anything, the biggest benefit for this performance bonuses thing is leeway in terms of labeling. That it's more discretionary, that they can give bonuses to whoever they feel deserves it. And for the most part, I think that they do a reasonable job.
I hear sirens. I think Ronda just took someone's arm.
Well, it's interesting. There were a lot of decisions, but last night the main event and the co-main event ended up in finishes. And let's go ahead and talk about the co-main event. Cormier versus Cummins. Any really takeaway in Cormier's performance? His first time down to 205. Cummins comes in, short notice. I love the story working at Starbucks the week before. I'm glad, you know, Dana said in the post-fight press conference he's going to give this kid another shot. I think we were all cheering for him.
Yeah.
To at least do well. I'm not going to say I was cheering for him to win, but I want to see him do well. Your thoughts on the fight? Any takeaways as far as Daniel Cormier possibly being the guy to dethrone John Jones at 205?
I think DC came in and did what he had to do. He couldn't take it to the second round. He had to come in, and it had to be finished in the first round, just because of the interview that was done on Fox the week prior about, you know, how Cummins made him cry in the wrestling camp, and, you know, it just really, you know, it got to DC, and it was one of those things where he let his anger out, but he didn't let his anger take over. And, you know, he was like, you know what, fine, talk your talk. You know, I'm going to call you Patrick from now on. And, you know, we're going to be in the octagon, and I'm going to finish you. And he did what he had to do. You know, it was to bring the wrestling theory back into the, you know, the product. It's almost like if Fandango went and talked crap about Steve Austin. you know Fandango isn't going to win, and you know he's going to get his ass kicked, and, you know, that's pretty much what happened last night. So I do wish that, you know, Cormier would have called out John Jones last night, you know, just to get things talking and so forth. But, you know, he did a good promo afterwards. I just kind of wish he would have dropped his name just to get the internet talking, because everyone knows how much the internet loves to talk. So.
Well, that they'll be able to promote that, you know, soon enough. Cormier. Jones is obviously defending against Glover Teixeira before too long, and then you're talking about probably quite a few months after that. I would think, though, that before too long, probably maybe not one other match for DC, and then you start talking about title contendership. For me, the takeaway, real briefly, was that the hype and everything. I think everything that could have been done for that match in terms of the last minute not bait and switch, but, you know, last minute replacement. Yeah. Everything was good there in terms of finding a guy that had some credentials and
he had a story
and a backstory. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The takeaway for everyone to discuss is that whole issue about what happens in the wrestling room stays in the wrestling room. I have mixed feelings about that. I personally think that it's more of a gray area, and you don't talk about. You don't give away someone's technique or anything outside. But that said, if there is some backstory there, then you promote it. That's what a promoter does, and that's what gets people buzzing. That said, though, obviously Cummins came in and made a mountain out of a molehill, and props to him, because that's
exactly. I was going to say the same thing. In most situations, I'm against, you know, taking that information outside the training room, but in Cummins' situation, you know, working an office job, you know, I feel the guy, he was working at Starbucks the week before, and he was trying to make a name, take this opportunity and just run with it.
I think they fired him.
Yeah, so the story is that on the phone, as he's talking to Dana on the phone through his manager, that the manager at the coffee shop said, "You're taking too much time on the phone. You're fired."
Wow.
And Dana said, "All right, well, tell that guy to go F himself, because now you've got another job."
Nice.
So let me ask you, Jay, as a matchmaker, what do you do with Daniel Cormier next? Let's say John Jones goes ahead and defeats Glover Teixeira. Do you pair up Daniel Cormier and maybe Gustafsson, or do you go straight for a rematch between...
Gosh, that's kind of an interesting match, isn't it?
Because we're going to have to wait for some of these matchups.
Yeah. I believe, I'm going off the cuff here, April, I think it is, for Jones and Teixeira. DC just came off, so you're talking about, what, 2 months, roughly about a month and a half. Yeah, 2 months difference here. Yeah, possibly Gustafsson versus Cormier is kind of interesting, and it gives Cormier a chance to. It's going to give him a chance to kind of test against that higher reach, the reach difference. And again, he saw that against Bigfoot Silva and overcame. So you probably stick in another match there. I'm not sure exactly who off the top of my head, but I think Jones is probably only going to fight twice this year, and you've already got one, so you may be looking at the fall for the next one.
Yeah, I'm thinking November, maybe December.
something like that. But you know, Cormier, I'm guessing, is probably going to want to have, you know, 1 or 2 more matches before. I would guess maybe 1, depending on who the competitor, the opponent is.
Yeah, and I think too with the weight cut, that's probably another opportunity for him to get comfortable at 205.
Yeah, you know, it's a big question as to how soon, you know, or how much does he bounce up after this? How much was he going into the cage? But my guess is that, I mean, Daniel is too much of a professional, I think, to let his weight balloon up to where it's a problem. I'm guessing that he's gonna, you know, he's gonna stay in probably, you know, if he can, 230. You know, 220 to 230, so that he can comfortably get down to 205. But I thought he looked healthy, you know, in the cage. I don't think that, you know, I think that 205, it's just a matter of getting used to it. Maybe I'm stretching too much, but farther down the line, notwithstanding his age, you know, I could see him possibly going down to 85. I mean, if he really changed his diet, it's long shot. I'm not saying immediately, you know, let's go step by step, obviously. You know, I'm not foolish.
But I think, too, if he does run through this division, obviously becomes champion, he's never going to drop down to 85.
I agree.
It's if he can't get past John Jones, maybe going 0 for 2 against Jones, and Kane is still the heavyweight champion, Daniel might consider that.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's probably a long shot.
I mean, just that he didn't look drawn out or sucked up. He looked very healthy at 205.
He did. And before, in the essence of time, I want to talk about CM Punk being at the show last night and the whole MMA thing. But any other fights you guys want to cover on the undercard or that you saw in the prelims?
I enjoyed watching Wonder Boy, Stephen Thompson. Thought that was he had a fantastic performance there. He's another guy that I feel is already being built up well, but somebody seriously to watch on the rise. I think we're going to continue to see more from him. You know, very unorthodox striker, seems very comfortable being in the limelight, and I think that as people continue to grow as fans of his, that's only going to grow as well. He's going to be a fun guy for them to market, and I think we're going to see a lot of great things from him in the future.
And a great nickname, Wonder Boy.
Yes, exactly.
I thought the female fight, the Davis Jessica Evil Eye fight, was, you know, good. A lot of people, including myself, thought, you know, Jessica won, but it's one of those things where Dana says don't leave it up to the judges, and you know, Sarah Davis came out with the win. So
yeah, I'm gonna go with Mike Pyle, another impressive performance. I think this guy's an overachiever. You look at him and you don't see athlete, you don't see someone who's just gonna run through people. He does it really with technique, his experience. He's very crafty in the cage. So guy with another impressive performance and really just hovers around that top 10. I don't think he'll ever get to a title shot as he's getting a little bit older here in his run, but I think it was good to see some of the old guys, old school guys, get a victory, because lately we've been seeing with the Josh Barnett's and so forth that this new age and new athletes that are coming into MMA are really, you know, doing damage to some of these veterans.
Yeah, age is going to be a factor. The younger guys, more and more as they come up, and as MMA is an established sport, the younger they come up, the more they're already learning these farther advanced techniques than some of the older guard, shall we say. That said, I think Mike Pyle, I know we haven't seen the last of Josh Barnett. I know we haven't seen the last of Mike Pyle. I think I'd go so far as to say that Mike Pyle's, he's been a guy that I think he might have peaked a little bit earlier than when the sport peaked. But that said, I think we're seeing a resurgence in him. And you know, even though I think he's probably in his mid-30s or so,
I would think so.
I've got a feeling that we're gonna see another rise of Mike Pyle. I mean, I wouldn't want to call him a late bloomer per se, but I still think there's far more on the horizon for him.
And I hope so. I'm a big fan. So let's go ahead and talk the issue that we've been waiting for. We see the shirt on that Ravens sporting right now. We know he's a huge wrestling fan. CM Punk makes it out again last night to UFC show. There's been all kinds of talk. Dana's even addressed it. The fans on the underground, the internet, they've been asking for it.
Honestly, I thought it was just odd that, you know, the internet blew up seeing that CM Punk was there. It's like, you know, he's been at so many UFC events before. Like, why is this big news? It's like,
well, it's been talked about a month ago. I think it had been discussed, and then I think it was Ariel Helwani had interviewed him and asked him.
Yeah,
and you know, he mentioned he trains with the Gracies, and
I mean, I understand the situation of where his his career with WWE is at right now. So I think that's why it was a big news that he was there. But I'm like, hey, you know, the guy had to get on the airplane. You know, no one saw him get on the airplane. That's, you know, they're acting like they haven't seen him in public. I'm like, come on, they check into a hotel in Vegas. Like, you can't really do that. But you know, I mean, Punk's a big fan. You know, and
do you think he'll ever do not even say UFC? Do you think he will ever do an MMA fight? Because Ariel asked him flat out in that interview, and he, you know,
I mean, it's one of the
he gave the wrestling like
it's one of those things where we just talked about the age thing, because you know he's been a wrestler for so long. He's not young, but I don't know. And honestly, I'll put this out there right now. I would like for him to answer that right here on AfterBuzz.
There's a plug for you. Come on, Punk. Come on.
He'll probably be sitting in this chair. I'm taking off. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, would I like to see him in a MMA fight? Personally, no. But you know, I mean, just as a promoter,
He's a liar.
As a promoter, no,
he wants that.
as a
and he wants to say
every
GSP.
every wrestling fan wants to see their guy go beyond it. And
I saw Del Rio. Come on, I mean.
But that was cool in retrospect.
That was
it?
he wore the mask. I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Reference point. Dos Caras Jr. and Mirko Cro Cop Pride Fighting Championships.
YouTube it.
Yeah.
Head kick.
Actually, no YouTube anymore. Fight Pass.
Oh, Fight Pass. There we go.
That's right. Yeah,
there we go.
UFC Fight Pass.
Exactly.
No, but I mean, it'd be interesting. And as a promoter mindset, of course, you're gonna get. It's gonna be a huge moneymaker. You know, this is what this is sports entertainment. You know, I mean, UFC is sports entertainment, no different than WWE is, and it's all about money. You know, when they brought Brock in, Brock brought money in. So you know, I think. Did we have that clip of Punk or Ronda Rousey?
Yeah, we do. We do. Let's play it.
But you're friends with The Rock, and you like CM Punk. Which one is your favorite?
How dare you put me on the spot? Oh God! I mean, I have to say The Rock. I do. I love you so much. I was really bummed when I heard he was leaving wrestling. I would love for him to come back and like have a big showdown with Triple H. That'd be cool.
So no, but no, you're not interested in seeing inside a cage, like.
I know it would definitely be interesting, but I've just been following his storyline and career in wrestling for so long that I was just like, I feel like there's so much more that he could do. But I also understand him being frustrated and fed up. You know, that's really what happened with me in judo, and I kind of left with a very sour taste in my mouth, and I definitely relate to him and where he's at in his life right now.
I know there, Ronda was talking about, you know, being frustrated and fed up and leaving a great job, as fans would see it, you know, at possibly the prime of your career. And, you know, I've talked to friends recently about, you know, is Ronda taking on too much right now? You know, with 2 fights within, you know, 3-4 months, you know, movies, you know, she's doing an Entourage movie. I think she has another movie after that, you know.
Athena Project.
Yeah, and then, you know, obviously 1, maybe 2 more fights this year, most likely 1. And then next year it's already planned for Fast and Furious 7 to come out, so she's got to do all the promotion for that. So, you know.
But that promoting won't take up that much time. You know,
it depends. I mean, based around her training camp and so forth. So
exactly, yeah, she's a fighter first and foremost. She's talked about that, and you know, if a film comes out and she's got to do a little bit of media for it, clearly she can do it and train. She's a media workhorse. Yeah, well, I'll drop a wrestling reference for you. She's between the media and working the shows. She's the John Cena of MMA.
Well, I'm going for a Rocky reference. The fight game changes extremely fast, and right now there's Juliana Pena somewhere who's doing the whole Clubber Lang video montage when Ronda's out doing the acting. And I'm not saying she shouldn't do that. That's a bad thing, but you're gonna see women's MMA really evolve like the men's game did, where we're still kind of seeing specialists. Ronda showing last night she's developing, but there's that next generation that's coming up. And I heard Ronda, and I think Ronda's aware of it. She said last night she may be only 2 or 3 fights left in her career. Yeah, I believe she said. So that's gonna be one of those interesting things to monitor as you get so successful in the fight game, like where does the hunger come from to go out there in a cage and still compete?
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's why I noticed last night. I'm like, okay, she won, and she has all these other projects happening right now, and you know, she, as you said, she said maybe 2 or 3 more fights in her career. You know, that could mean she could retire at the end of next year. You know, quite possibly.
Yeah, but she's also said that, again, she's a fighter at heart, and fighters say things.
Yeah, at the spur of the moment.
It's spur of the moment, and people change their minds. Humans change their minds.
Yeah.
She says she has 2 or 3 fights left in her. I don't believe that. Come on. You know,
no, I mean, I think she has way more than that. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. Even last night in the press conference, she mentioned, like, you know, someone asked her, what is she going to do with her time off? And she said, you know, right now, I don't know. She's like, I'm going to live life, but, you know, in 2 weeks, I may need to get back to the gym.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
And as I said, you know, people change their minds.
Especially with Entourage being filmed in L.A., it's not like, you know, she has to travel or go to, you know, Miami or New York or to film a movie. Like, she's home, so she can go to the gym.
Right.
Variety is the spice of life, and it's fun to do other things. But, you know, I think she's one of those people that strikes me as always coming back to fighting.
And I kind of agree, because Ronda takes me as one of those people that you very rarely ever find that's wired that way, like a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan. You only see these kind of athletes, you know, once every 10 to 15 years in each sport. I mean, she comes to the ring and she looks pissed and she's like ready to fight. Even last night, the fight was short, but man, it looked, I mean, if that was going to go any further, it was going to be an absolute war. So, you know, I talked about the hunger, and you see, you know, some guys, once they get famous, they win a championship, they just can't match that hunger that they had back in the day when they were trying to make it.
There's a saying about it's hard to get to training when you're sleeping in silk sheets, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't think that's the case with her. I think that fire burns within her right now. Sounds a bit way too poetic for that, but at any rate, I think it's there. That's a fundamental part of her. That said, as humans themselves, we go through life and our lives go in different directions. But I wouldn't be surprised that she never leaves fighting, you know, or sports in general, whether it's teaching judo or coaching other women, or you know, possibly opening up her own gym at some point farther down the line, etc. You know, or continuing to take fights that interest her. You know, Randy did that. He walked away from the sport. He was done with it, and he wanted to go on a new chapter of his life. And then he came back again because the fire reignited. You know, or there were interesting matches to look into, and you know, people made it worth their while.
And I think that's also ties into what this show is going to become once, you know, we bring more shows to the AfterBuzz audience of what fighters do, you know, after their career, or if they take a long break in their career. I know we talked about earlier about Rich Franklin, who owns a juice shop here in the LA area, and I think we're going to be probably going to get a segment shot at his location to, you know, show the fans, you know, what someone like on the status of a Rich Franklin does after the UFC.
We're gonna get free drinks from there, right?
I sure hope so.
Okay,
actually,
all right.
I know a few of the WWE guys went there 2 weeks ago during Raw, and they were tweeting pictures from it. So
nice,
it looked pretty good.
Good. Well, I'm thirsty.
Exactly.
Even with this here,
even with the stocked fridge in the next room.
Okay, guys, I think we're gonna wrap up here shortly. Jay, Raven, any other things you guys want to cover before we go ahead and wrap this up?
You know, I just I think we should explain to the audience that for now, this show is going to be more right after pay-per-views, and some of the Fox specials. And I guess once the BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar season of Ultimate Fighter starts, then we're going to be a little bit more regular and so forth. You may see different faces up here. You're going to see Jay's face and my face most likely all the time, because we're just...
whether you like it or not.
Yeah, kind of like the new Dudley Boys or something.
But I gotta keep this table.
Just call me Bubba J.
I think that was a good one, because our buddy over here just pressed the hand sanitizer over there. But I guess someone at this table is moving to Winter Park, Florida. Not WWE involved, so he claims.
Yeah, Saturday is my last day in SoCal. I'm leaving paradise. What an idiot, right?
And going to Florida, no less.
Exactly.
I was just in Winter Park about a month ago, so I hope you enjoy it there.
We'll see. I'll probably come back crying in 2 weeks.
The weather is unique.
So our next after show, or your guys' next after show, UFC post-fight show will be for UFC 171, Hendricks versus Lawler, March 16th. Raven said more UFC AfterBuzz once the BJ Penn Frankie Edgar season begins. Let's see, get even crazier when we get that Chael Vanderlei on the UFC Fight Pass. Oh my God, AfterBuzz is going to be the place to be to get all your UFC news. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back again for UFC 171, Hendricks versus Lawler, March 16th.
Where can we find you guys on Twitter?
All right.
Twitter.
Jaytan716, JAYTAN716. And also, if you do me a favor, follow uofmma.com. Or U of MMA, pardon me.
You're on Twitter?
My own Twitter?
Tweeter.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Are you following me?
Yes, I am.
Oh.
Oh,
yeah, I'm following you
Dudley
too.
Boys here.
Raven,
Okay.
Raven out. Go.
At Raven1220, you can find everything else, social media from that point.
I'm at Rob_Abreu, ABREU.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.